Dragon Ball Z Sagas is a game that has been commonly referred to as the worst Dragon Ball Z game of all time. It's derived an extremely negative reputation throughout gamers and Dragon Ball Z fans alike. But is it really as bad as people say that it is? Actually no. Literally every review I've watched of the game is absolutely ripping it apart, calling it names like the worst Dragon Ball Z game ever. But the thing is, I remember loving this game as a kid. I couldn't possibly be alone here, right? Although the comments in the other reviews of this game are mostly negative, I did notice in almost every single one there would be at least a few comments disputing the hate, having fond memories of Sagas just like I do. Granted, I was just a little boy when this game came out in 2005, so I guess the question is, will I still like it today? And is it worthy of the title, Worst DBZ Game ever? Let's find out. The main menu screen of this game is downright terrible. Not only is it bland, but the modes. Seriously, there aren't any. Aside from story mode, of course. Now, not every game needs to be filled with excessive amounts of modes for it to be good, but this game came out in a time where we were getting like 3 DBZ games a year. For you youngins, that's not an exaggeration. Plus, Sagas came out, I believe, the same year as Budokai Tenkaichi, which was packed with content. So it definitely feels very lackluster in comparison. I mean, let's check out these modes anyway. You've got training mode.
Collect Z coins to purchase skill upgrades.
Fun. Then you've got extras, which is literally just the cutscenes from the game, which are, spoiler alert, just cuts from the anime. I'm pretty sure this is the only DBZ game that does this, and I see why. I usually look forward to seeing cutscenes in the upcoming DBZ games. They have different takes on events, new dialogue, sometimes, enhanced graphics, and in recent years, arguably superior graphics to the anime. But this is legit just ripped from the show. Reeks of laziness. The most important mode here is, of course, story mode. Similar to the original Budokai and Burst Limit, the story starts off at the fight with Raditz, and it ends with the Cell Game Saga.
Trunks!
But with a twist. The game is broken up into 7 sagas, like different chapters in the game. You've got Saiyan, Ginyu, Frieza, my 2 favorite, Yardrat and Trunks, and then androids and Cell. This game is a classic beat 'em up, so it throws in the aspect of open world. Spoiler again, it's not open world. With collectibles, enemy types, and more. And it also adds story aspects no game up to this point has covered, like the Yardrat and Trunks saga, which is actually pretty damn cool. Once I started playing the game, I realized quickly why I loved this as a kid, and also why it got so much hate from older fans at the time.
You can only carry 3 Senzu beans at a time. You can only carry 3 Senzu beans at a time. You can only carry 3 Senzu beans at a time.
You're basically just running around a linear area and beating up enemies who in many cases have no right to be there, given their place in the story's timeline. The game wants you to destroy everything in your sight because that's cool and fun and new at the time. But what's not fun is finding all the collectibles, which for the most part are underneath the destructible parts of the environment. But the collectibles are almost always not required to beat the game, but will allow you to grow as a character. There's 3 different ways this is possible. First, through red capsules. If you collect enough of these, your health bar will increase. Also, each one you collect will recover you a bit if you've taken some damage. Next, we have yellow capsules. If you collect enough of these, your key meter will increase, allowing you to do more blasts, teleports, and anything that takes key. In addition, each one collected gives you a bit of your key back. I find that aspect of these to be almost useless, given that you could just charge your key at any moment pretty quickly. And finally, arguably most importantly, Z coins. These coins are scattered across almost every level, and if enough are collected, you can purchase a special move, combo, and other things that would generally improve your Sagas experience. You can also find senzu beans in many of the levels, which allow you to regain all your health if you happen to die. And I'm not gonna lie, these can be pretty useful for some of the harder levels. Now, let's get into the actual gameplay. As early as the first level, you'll notice that aiming is extremely off. It's not only hitting enemies that's weird, but gathering collectibles can be an absolute mess. Sometimes you will run around a capsule in circles for like 10 seconds before you actually grab it. And trust me, this is the game's fault. You are not an idiot. The solution here, at least for enemies, is locking onto them, which will work more often than if you don't lock on at least. Another minor gripe I had is that the enemies are always where they shouldn't be at. Like Cybermen in the Raditz level, these weird ass androids in the Future Trunks arc. Okay, it's been a while since I've watched the history of Trunks, but I'm pretty sure there was only 2 androids. And get this, Cybermen in the freaking Cell Saga. At that point, they should have just used Cell Juniors, even though that wouldn't have really made sense either. The only ones that genuinely fit where they're supposed to is the Frieza soldiers. I do understand why they do this though. This type of game does need a plethora of smaller beat 'em up enemies to fill in the gaps between boss fights. So honestly, it's excusable. Sagas is also far from the open world experience it was marketed as. You will have to kill the same enemies over and over again until, oh wait, a bigger version of the same enemy appears. I don't remember giant blue Cybermen in the anime. And if you do attempt to skip through a group of enemies, you'll hit an invisible wall and be greeted with a warm welcome from Bulma. I can't tell you how many times I had to hear that.
You must kill all enemies before proceeding.
There's also a part in the first level where you have to buy the Kamehameha to continue. That's right, Goku's signature move that he learned 10 plus years prior to these events needs to be purchased in order to continue on with the story. I literally had to go back, collect Z coins, to progress in the story within the first 2 minutes of the game.
Complete. You now have enough Z coins to purchase
At least it was in the first level.
the upgrade point and purchase the special move skill.
If you're a completionist like me, you're going to be going back a lot in this game. And I mean a lot. For instance, and one of many instances in the game, in the second level, you have to go through the entire map to get to the mountain where you have to gain enough height to collect the majority of the Z coins. Meaning, you have to fly back across literally the entire level and then fly back again through the entire level to fight Nappa. Hopefully that makes sense. But basically, You get to the end of the level, then you jump as high as you can from the top of the cliff to fly back across to the start of the level again to get all these Z coins that were at the top of the map. Then you have to fly back all the way through again to the end of the level to fight the boss. I don't understand why they couldn't just allow us to fly upwards. I mean, this is Dragon Ball after all. Needless to say, the platforming is just odd, but it does keep me captivated. And it does add a bit, and I mean just a tiny bit of longevity to the game. This may just be a personal thing, and judging by comments I've seen in other videos, it is. But I somewhat enjoyed the tedious little things like finding a cliff you have to jump off to collect the highest floating Z coin, and searching for the capsules, because look, this game is short, and I mean really short. If it was a 30-hour game, I would hate this with a passion. But if you're not collecting everything, there is no reason to take your time. So it does add a tiny bit of depth to the game. For example, I finished this game in 4 hours with everything collected. All the capsules, all the Z coins. If you are not doing that and just breezing through it, I can see a casual gamer completing this in 2 hours or less. If they didn't cut out so many key parts of the story, it might have been a decent runtime though. This would have been a perfect game to incorporate a Snake Way level with a Princess Snake boss fight. But no, straight from Rats to Nappa. But that's just light. Even worse, the game goes straight from Vegeta to the Ginyu Force fight. In that very same level, you play as Vegeta. So why we couldn't have had a Zarbon and Dodoria level? So much content was skipped for seemingly no reason. Oh, and switching topics, I have to mention, the Vegeta fight at the end of the Saiyan Saga is just weird. I remember this from being a kid and I always hated it with a passion. Vegeta is just teleporting around everywhere constantly and spams the same 2 attacks the entire time, like to a point where you just get so frustrated with this game. There is barely any melee from him, and when he does, he just slings you in the air. It gets very annoying. Luckily, I purchased Teleport right before this fight, which makes this and other battles so much more easy to handle, and a bit more fun as well. The weird thing about Teleport though is the game advertises it on the control menu and also has a specific button designated for it. So having to buy it mid-game is a bit of a weird choice. Another thing is the power levels. This is one of possibly the only game that has the power levels of each of the bosses show before fighting them. Well, kinda. I thought this was a really neat addition to the game, but it is kind of weird that they just stop around the Frieza fight. I mean, at that point, it's like, why even have them at all if 70% or so of the game just has question marks in place of the power levels? Now, they will show you a certain amount of question marks depending on how strong this person is. Like, for instance, Android 17 will have in the 10 millions question marks, but Perfect Cell will have in the 100 millions of question marks. But still, it's just an odd choice. The combos you get from the Z Shop are okay. They're mostly just AA, BB, AA, or some combination of the 2 buttons. There literally is not much to it. A lot of the time, I'd find myself accidentally hitting them when fighting. Other times, it would be on purpose, but again, they are not hard to remember. And once you have all of them, some combination of the 2 buttons is almost certain to be a combo. Personally though, I found myself using uppercut smash the most. It feels like very Dragon Ball when you pull it off. So, as you could probably tell, I'm not going to break down every level and boss in this game. Only ones that really stood out. That being said, the video is getting a little bit long, so let's jump into the most annoying boss fight in the game. Burter and Jace. I'll give it to the game, the 2v1 boss fight was a pretty cool idea. But dude, Burter just constantly interrupts you when you're fighting Jace and vice versa. Like constant spam of this same rush attack. It's not a hard fight, just super frustrating to get through. Oh, and on the other hand, one of my absolute favorites was the Yard Rat boss fight. Now, not for what you'd expect. The boss fight is, for lack of a better term, mid. But although the entire saga consists of 0 levels and just this one boss fight, I do have to commend the game for adding this in there. I'll be the first to admit, it's a bit out of left field, like what the hell is this thing? And the boss fight's just okay. I mean, it doesn't even look like a Yard Rat, and I just don't get where the inspiration came from, but no other game has ever incorporated this piece of the story, where Goku goes to Yard Rat. So kudos for that. I really appreciate it in the game. But this does bring up, again, a serious question. If they're adding a freaking Yard Rat saga, why, again, did they skip so many crucial fights that were legitimately in the anime? No Dodoria? No Zarbon? No Guldo? No Mecha Frieza? Ultra Trunks versus Cell? I mean, hell, they could have added a Garlic Jr. saga. I mean, come on, let's be honest. That would have been kind of unique and cool. But no, they went with Goku on Yard Rat, which is briefly mentioned in the anime to have happened. I just really wish I could see what they were thinking here when making the game. But again, this stuff is different and I appreciate it. Another arc that makes this game stand out is the Trunks saga. At this point, it was pretty rare to see games go into the future Trunks timeline, and the way they did it was a really nice touch. I mean, of course they added hundreds of these Star Wars looking androids to battle before you reach 17 and 18, but still, for this game, pretty damn different, unique, and dare I say, cool. I also remember when I was a kid, there was this glitch when fighting 17 and 18. You can go underneath the map, but I don't know how I did it, and it didn't happen this time. But trust me, it's possible. Just look it up on YouTube. Another thing I will give the Trunks saga props for is the prototype androids are more tolerable than the androids in the next saga. Beating this level while preventing them from destroying the city is tedious and frustrating. Sometimes they will be completely off screen and attacking buildings. I can only do so much at one time. There's so much more I have in my notes, but this video is already significantly longer than I expected. So let's just briefly touch on the Cell saga and wrap it up. Although there's 5 levels in this finale saga, there's really only 3, and you could even argue there's only 1. It goes by quick. 2 of these levels are hyperbolic time chamber levels, one with Trunks and Vegeta, and the later one featuring Goku and Gohan. I have a few problems with this. Why skip over so much content from the show again, and then fit in 2 entire levels of hyperbolic time chamber training? I just do not understand. Also, these levels are actually much harder than you'd imagine. If you're playing solo, all you have to do is complete combos on your training partner faster than they do on you. Sounds simple, right? No. Your partner will, for some reason, be insanely fast and hard to hit. As soon as the next combo appears, they launch at you ready to go. Teleport definitely is your friend here if you're playing one player. But most importantly, These levels give off tutorial vibes. There's literally only 2 levels after this. Why are we learning combos at the very end of the game? Again, could have been useful on King Kai's planet in the Saiyan Saga, or with Gohan and Piccolo early on. Why now? It's like the game forgot to teach you combos until this point. Like I stated previously, there's only one non-boss fight exclusive level in this saga, and it's Vegeta versus Semi-Perfect and Perfect Cell. This is an okay level. You chase Cell through the island, fighting him a few times before he absorbs 18, and then you take him on again when he's perfect. Problem here is they skip over Ultra Trunks, which I think would have been a cool standalone level. It wouldn't have been that hard to make, I don't think. I just don't get why they skipped it. Speaking of crucial moments, the Cell games completely skips over the Goku versus Cell fight. Like, what? The Goku versus Cell fight. The game concludes with Super Saiyan 2 Gohan versus Cell. Playing as Super Saiyan 2, finally. So cool. You power through Cell and end the game, right? Wrong again. For difficulty purposes, the game makes you fight Cell in base and SS1 form in order to charge up SS2. Even bigger issue. The key meter, or the power up meter, is constantly depleting at such a fast pace. The strat here is to constantly teleport, combo Cell, rinse and repeat, and you cannot let him move away. You just have to keep beating this guy up. You do not have any time to back off and take a break, because the key meter will drain so rapidly. Just beat the hell out of this guy. I don't know. It took me a few times to beat it. But once you hit Super Saiyan 2, you will completely dominate Cell, which is pretty fun. There's also this weird moment at the end of the fight where it will flip to cutscene and then put you right back in the fight where you left off. Only to have you hit Cell with one Kamehameha and it's over. Like 2 seconds of extra gameplay. They should have just made the entire thing a cutscene. I don't get what they were getting at here. So we've talked a bunch about the bad aspects of the game, but before we end, let's touch on the positives, because there are some. Looking back on my time playing this as a child, I definitely enjoyed it, much more so then. But the game definitely was fun to play. This could just be my nostalgia for it, but I really don't think so. Sagas is a fun, senseless, short game to play if you're a DBZ fan. It is absolutely dated, which may also play a factor into whether you enjoy it or not. But I have to say, there is something very special about this game. There's really been no other DBZ game like it. Sure, you can compare it to Kakarot, but I really think they both have their own place in the DBZ series. I really, again, can't put my finger on it, but there's just some charm to this game. Playing through it again brings me joy, and I kind of enjoyed the tedious just picking up capsules and finding Z coins and beating up Cybermen in the Cell Saga. I know some of you feel the same way. Long story short, I think I'll remember this game for a long time, and maybe another 10 years from now, I'll go back and play it again.